As 2023 comes to an end, can we look forward to next year in the state of Missouri and possibly some other states with the expectation that we could see new legal tender legislation being passed that would allow you to reclaim your constitutional right to use silver and gold as real money? Today, we're joined by Mr. Pat Holland. He's leading the initiative in Missouri, and he's promised to give us an update as to what we might expect for 2024. Mr. Holland, welcome back to Ron's Basement.
Ron, thank you for having me back, man. You know what? I never asked you. We have a gold bear, we have a silver bear, we have a platinum bear, but we have a fourth bear there too.
We do. Yeah. Oh, the Weber bear?
Yeah, the Weber bear.
Yeah,
is that what he is? Is the Weber bear?
He's the Weber bear. He's the Weber spice bear. So
okay, so he's not like the Palladium bear or anything like that, or
not yet. But we're not against putting a blindfold on him at some point. So
okay, gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, it's nice to see the family's growing out there. And so
yes,
yep. And I'll tell you what, the platinum bear, he looks exasperated right now. He looks like really tuckered. Yeah. So I'm just throwing that out there.
He's been through the mill.
It looks like it.
Poor Platinum's taken a beating lately.
Yeah. And well, shoot, all of them have technically. You look at the inflation we've had since, COVID, and it's just fascinating to me that gold and silver are the only things that really can't rise up too much. You look at your groceries and everything's virtually doubled. What you'd buy in groceries, and some things more than others. I mean, look at, the cost of, meat at the grocery store, the price of cheese at the grocery store. They've doubled, if not more, things of that nature. And everything else has, computer parts have gone up quite a bit too, but they do keep gold and silver awfully suppressed. The premiums are up, the premiums are nice and high. So that's the free market way of dealing with the suppression done by our own government. But let me tell you, you mentioned, an update on 2024. And we have a rough copy of the actual gold and silver bill that I've been actually emailed by Senator Eigel. And it's actually on our website in our forums at mofree.org. Now, it's not a 100% finished product, but it's enough for other states to grab a copy and start using it as a template to create their own bills in their own states, just like kind of what happened last year. Because Senator Eigel's bill, basically language from his bill ended up in, a dozen states or more. And so, basically, and we're not saying that we're the smartest people in the world writing bills or anything, but Bill Eigel's pretty smart. And so he's doing a good job with this, and other states, want to partake in that, because there's ideas maybe they want to take. But I want to throw this out before we, continue the exchange real quick. Any states out there that have sales tax on the purchase of gold and silver from your dealer, from a local dealer, get rid of it. Just that should be your top priority in that state, is getting rid of that sales tax on gold and silver. It's tough to go anywhere else with gold and silver legislation with that still sitting on the table. It must be removed from the table. So I think, Ron, if memory serves, there's 8 states, I think, that have sales tax left on gold and silver, something like that.
Yep, that sounds right.
So those 8 states, you've got your work cut out for you. You won't find help in the Missouri bill because we don't have that in Missouri. But that should be your first priority in 2024 legislatively, is get rid of that sales tax. It shouldn't be there anyway. Tax on money. On money.
Would that be akin to me taking 4 quarters to my local bank and wanting a $1 bill? Maybe not the best analogy, and them saying, well, it's actually going to cost you 4 quarters, a nickel
plus
and 3 pennies. Yeah, plus a dime. I mean, people wouldn't stand for that, but for some reason, when they want to convert their make-believe paper money into real money, gold and silver, there are still a handful of states that are charging basically a tax, a fee for that transaction to be executed. If you're looking to buy gold, silver, or platinum, do yourself a favor and check out Pimbex, the online precious metals bullion dealer and sponsor of Ron's Basement. I was a happy customer before they offered to support the channel.
you'll find they have the best prices, quality, and service. I think Pembex is best, and you will too. And be sure to tell them that you're from Ron's Basement.
That's a good analogy. Even though when we're talking about different asset groups, and quarters are synonymous with paper, Federal Reserve notes. I get that. But that is a good analogy of what it technically is. And this is immoral, absolutely immoral. You should get rid of it on a moral, just on moral grounds. But that's a very important part of what we have to do here in the United States to make gold and silver money, to make sure that states can trade between each other. Like, for instance, Minnesota has sales tax, a certain kind of sales tax on certain types of gold and silver coins and bars or whatever. And if we're going to trade with Minnesota in the future, because they have gold and silver legal tender legislation, that would mean there would be a Minnesota sales tax, basically on anything that we're purchasing from the state of Minnesota using gold and silver, and we won't do it. What that means is we're less likely to trade with you than with Oklahoma. Oklahoma seems a better deal because they don't have that weird sales tax on gold and silver for transactions. So that's why states need to get rid of it. You have to start thinking of it along lines of states trading with other states using gold and silver, just the way they did 150 years ago.
Yeah. And let me just ask you to do a quick review. Why is it so important for the viewer who's watching us right now, sitting in Texas or California or New York State? Why is it? What's the benefit to them to having their state pass legal tender legislation?
Sure. Well, currently you can use gold and silver. There's no law against it. But if you actually set up legal tender legislation, what happens is businesses become much more friendly to gold and silver. Silver becomes much more friendly to business. Just by having, a law saying that gold and silver are legal tender, it is more likely your businesses in your state will be using it for transactions. That's the basically the long and short of it. So,
and as a collective, the state itself, are they also able to, on a collective basis for all their state citizens? It helps protect, I would imagine, the citizens if there's a depository or if a certain amount of the state's assets are held in silver and gold. Is that a safe assessment as well?
Sure, yeah, I think so. But I think states invest in things that are not considered legal tender anyway. So the states can invest in gold and silver if they wanted to right now anyway. But having a depository in your state for gold and silver also is an incentive for businesses to start using gold and silver. If your state accepts gold and silver as payment of taxes, and we're not, and I get called out on this all the time. You're saying, gosh darn it, Pat, I don't want to pay gold and silver, for my taxes. No. You don't have to. What you do is you just make it so the state has to take it if you offer it. So if a person should offer gold and silver, they could also offer dollars, Federal Reserve notes. I'm of the opinion that you should be bringing, hundreds of thousands of pennies to pay your taxes, and they have to take it because pennies are legal tender, by the way. And please don't tell them I told you that. But the fact is really, really simple. Everything surrounds getting businesses to use gold and silver. Look at the flip side right now. The enemy, the Federal Reserve, is doing the Fed Now program. And they're trying to incentivize businesses to get off of the dollar, or cash, more specifically, cash. So the Fed incentivizes getting cashless. We need the states to incentivize gold and silver by making it legal tender, giving them another option. So it's us, the people, against the Federal Reserve at this point. And, are we, taking out our pitchforks and, our torches and going after the Federal Reserve? No, but we need free market options for how people will transact before everyone gets pushed into this digital dollar. We definitely, states across the United States need to take this very, very seriously. Incidentally, states will be trapped into the same nonsense. They'll be using a digital dollar too. They'll have a digital wallet. The Federal Reserve can turn it on and off based on whether or not the state is compliant with everything the federal government wants. This is anathema to the Constitution. The states have the power. If
Yeah,
anyone, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's why the founding fathers put gold and silver in the Constitution, and I'm sorry I interjected on you there.
First Mining Gold is a development company advancing two of the largest gold projects in Canada, Springpole in Ontario and Duparquet located in Quebec. Each already has 5 million ounces of gold reserves, but exploration initiatives are underway at both projects to find even more gold. First Mining is well-financed, has zero debt, and owns an interest in 4 additional Canadian gold development projects.
You're right, because it's no nation's money. It's everybody's money.
Yeah.
Everyone can use gold and silver. So, and it should be considered, the world reserve currency, in my opinion. But of course, you can't have just unlimited wars. So, or, and also too, an enormous amount of entitlement programs that are just bottomless pits. So you can't have that under those circumstances. But getting businesses involved with gold and silver is key to getting gold and silver set as currency in the United States. So that's why legal tender legislation is necessary. Once again, mofree.org, in our forum section, you can find the current version of the draft for gold and silver legislation. Doesn't matter what state you live in, come and visit the forums. You do not have to sign up for the forums in order to see it and download a copy. If you want to start if you want to start, transacting with other people, talking to other people, you will have to sign up for an account on our forums. But just to go and read stuff and pull stuff off, you don't. But we want to encourage that, and then basically get people literally 2024. 2023, everyone knows what we did in 2023 in Missouri. There were 23 states total that were looking at some type of legislation with gold and silver, taking steps to making it legal tender, if not going all the way to legal tender. And in some states that already had legal tender, we're trying to get depositories, which is the end, and then ultimately a mint for their state to mint official specie for their state. That's another one we've never really explored fully. But that's an important part of this as well. So we are not a group of people that are anti-Federal Reserve. We are pro-free market. That's what we are. And every state should be that way as well.
And I think I'm hearing this theme as you were talking of privacy as well. If you want any form or any hope for financial privacy in the future, as we move into this electronic CBDC environment, gold and silver may become one of the few, viable options for an individual who wants to, maintain some freedom and liberty to have any form of financial privacy.
Well, it goes beyond privacy, though, doesn't it? Because people saving for the future will be totally controlled by the government, totally controlled if we go into a digital dollar. So it's not so much just privacy, but the ability to save for the future. And, the ability to make investments may be cut off from you if you're not a really good citizen, according to the federal government. I would probably be, in the bottom 5% of society because of the way I talk about government. I wouldn't be allowed to save. I probably wouldn't be allowed to drive very far. I could just trying to envision all the things the government would do to people like me that are saying, use the 10th Amendment, anti-commandeering doctrine. Make sure that the federal government understands that when they do unconstitutional legislation that becomes law at the federal level, your state doesn't have to follow it. And that's very legal, by the way. This isn't, I was about to say something I probably shouldn't, but it's not a form of violence against the government. It's actually using mechanisms the founding fathers installed in the 10th Amendment to make sure that the federal government couldn't do exactly what it's doing right now. And that's one more thing I'd like to point out is people say, well, the whole thing about the Revolutionary War is over taxes. That's not true. The revolution started with taxes, the Boston Tea Party, 1773. But what is not taught often in schools anymore is what's called the Battle of Concord, the shot heard around the world. The war started with gun confiscation. They don't teach that in schools because the last thing I guess they want to teach your kids is if the government comes to confiscate your guns, you don't let them do that. And that's the truth. That's the true history of the United States of America. But for some reason, it's forgotten in our history books now.
That's not a convenient fact to be mentioned any longer. It sounds like, right?
It sounds like it. But, but if you like, we could go into a little bit of, about the synonymous nature of land ownership and gold and silver, because what it inextricably ties these guys together is something we call alloidial title. And so it was designed that way. It's your property. Once you get it, once you earn it, it's yours. And that's one thing that the Missouri Freedom Initiative is looking into, and it has nothing to do with gold and silver right now, but it may do in the future. And that is for people to be on the lookout, no matter where you live in the United States, whether or not there is a referendum for your school district or some kind of bond they're trying to pass either in November 7th of this year or April of 2024. And the reason I'm shouting this out is because it's something that the Missouri Freedom Initiative has come across. It turns out it's a national program. It's all over the United States. And I want people to know, and I'm going to make a video about this very soon, that a no tax increase bond issue is how a lot of these are sold. But they are tax increases. We just talked about 1773 Boston Tea Party. That was an actual vertical increase. I do believe the tea tax went from 2 cents to 3 cents. That's my understanding. And I could be wrong, but I think that's right. And so what they're talking about with no tax increase bond issues when it comes to your school district, it's a horizontal increase. Let me explain. If I have a house and I have a 20-year loan on it, and I'm about to pay it off next year and not have to make house payments anymore, and then suddenly another 20 years of payments gets set up on my house, but it's the same payment that I've been paying all along. That they said that's not an increase. Well, that is an increase because you have to pay for your house again, but at the same rate that you were paying it before. You just have to pay it for another 20 years. That's what schools do. That's how they say it's a no tax increase bond issue. People be wary, they're lying to you. It is a horizontal increase. Your taxes on your house, like we talked about in 1773, your taxes keep going up. The taxes on your house keep going up because of your county government. If you have property tax in your state, I understand we have a few states that are lucky enough not to be in that situation. God bless you all. That's wonderful. We in Missouri, unfortunately, have property tax. So your county can lift it up every 2 years and say, congratulations, Mr. Holland, your house is now worth $1 million. Mm-hmm. And then I get to pay taxes on that because they say it's worth $1 million. So they keep raising it. Your school gets that increase. Everyone who's getting property taxes, gets or is funded through property taxes gets that increase. So I think it's incumbent upon, I have a spider coming down from my ceiling. That's great. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to understand when schools are going for bonds to find out if your schools truly need it, because once again, gold and silver situation, there's just no way the public schools could get away with a lot of the nonsense that they get away with right now. If we were on gold and silver, Ron, they'd have to be much more responsible with the people's money, much more responsible.
Yeah,
and
if it was tethered.
Yeah. And because, it's just turn on the printing press, funny money, basically the government plays fast and loose with this. Look at Social Security. At the beginning of all my live streams, for those of you who don't know, I do live streams on Saturday night, and once in a blue moon, Ron actually joins us for those. So that's really cool. And Ron has time to join. We show the U.S. debt clock at the beginning of all of our live streams. Ron, did you know that the United States government has actually acquired $1.4 trillion of debt in the last 4 months?
No, I didn't realize it was that crazy.
Yep.
Crazy.
1.4 trillion in the last 4 months. And I can prove it from June 28th. So, because I'm taking snapshots of the U.S. debt clock and I'm dating them. So
Right.
from June 28th up until today, we're officially at $1.4 trillion of additional debt since June 28th of 2023.
Yeah.
Guys, this is insane. The spending that's going on right now. This is why I'm saying we have to be very careful what we vote in for taxes at this point.
Yeah.
You know, silver and gold. If we were on a silver and gold standard, this nonsense simply couldn't happen. It simply couldn't happen. And
it's like a couple of drunken 24-year-olds with their daddy's American Express black card in Las Vegas is what
Yep.
it feels like, the spending that's going on. Is it accurate to say that mofree.org could become kind of a hub for people around the country that want to look into legal tender legislation? I know you've said you have a copy of the Missouri legislation on there. But do you feel like if somebody around the country wants to learn more about it, that would be a good first place to come check out?
I think so, because I don't know of any other organizations that are doing what we're doing right now, which is, you know, actually not only encouraging gold and silver legislation, but helping other states. You know, several people within our organization have done stuff to help other states with gold and silver legislation. And if you don't have an organization like the Missouri Freedom Initiative, you know, clearly you want to start one to support gold and silver in your state. And this can serve as a meeting point. And we have an amazing webmaster. His name is Tom. And he is doing, you know, a fantastic job, you know, of keeping up with the growth and everything. And we're looking for a brand new look is going to come to the website. All the functionality is being added, but we're going to have a different look to our website in the coming months. But the important thing is to understand that there are people out there that can help you get this done. And the more people you have, the better. You know, there's a Missouri Freedom Initiative is not a small organization by any stretch. And it's a very popular legislation. We were able to get lots of people to come up to Jeff City to come and talk to legislators face to face in 2023 to talk about gold and silver legislation. And every state needs to consider doing the same thing. I think some states are going to do this by default, just out of plain fear. And they should. They should. They should be afraid of what they see coming down the pike with the digital dollar. You know, with inflation the way it is right now, the fact that states now understand the federal government lies about, you know, the CPI. You know, they all know it now. You know, I think a lot of people say, no, the government won't fib on these numbers. Well, they fib on a lot of numbers, gang, a lot of numbers. And unemployment is a big one. And there are many, many others as well. Like, for instance, GDP, they fib on those. You can go to shadowstats.com and actually get John Williams information based on the 1980 standard to see how the government's actually doing with their numbers.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying this, but I've heard some very smart people call the BLS the Bureau of Lies and Statistics. So
that's correct.
There's a Pat. Thank you as always. It's been great speaking with you. You know, on behalf, you're definitely a fan favorite in the Ron's Basement community. You're always a wealth of knowledge and very generous with us, and very generous with people all throughout the whole country that have an interest in furthering legal tender legislation. I know we've mentioned it already, but if people want to learn more about you, about your organization, it's mofree.org. You do a live stream on Saturday nights. And I know when you're not too swamped busy, you're pretty good about, you know, returning emails and questions people have as well. And so on behalf of everyone, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. Thank you for having me on, and thanks for helping spread the word about gold and silver legislation nationwide. We all need it. Every state needs it. It's not just Missouri. You and I are Missourians, right? You know, so, you know, it's not just for us. It's for everyone in every state. So thanks for helping to spread the word on that as well. And I just love the folks in the basement. I mean, all the correspondence I've had with all the folks in the basement it's been top notch. You have a very smart audience.
Well, thank you. And we do appreciate that you wore a red shirt today as well.
You betcha. Solidarity, man.
See you soon, Pat. Thank you.
See you, Ron. Thank you. God bless you.